Transition
Good, Kurt.
into today's session regarding wages. I'm asking to Jennifer Ryan to take us through. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm Jennifer Ryan. I'm the assistant manager for the Wage Transparency and Construction Compliance Division, Illinois Department of Labor. With me today, I have Labor Conciliator Alejandra Garcia. Alejandra Garcia is also our certified transcript of payroll portal expert. If you don't know what the certified transcript of payroll portal is, you're about to learn more about it than you ever wanted to know. So I'm getting this discussion to cover prevailing wage for public bodies. But since we have some contractors here with us today, and thank you for being here with us today, I'm going to tailor the discussion a little bit on the fly to include everybody. So let's get started. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what prevailing wage is and take you through a quick tour of our website and talk to you about how to comply with it. Okay, and when we're done here, I'll definitely be able to answer some questions along with Ms. Garcia here. We'll make sure that these PowerPoints are available to anybody who would like to have them. So let's get started. Okay. Good, thank you. I'm just going to start by taking a look at the Illinois Department of Labor website. That's labor.illinois.gov. And once you get to our main screen, see a blue banner running across the top of the screen, little white lettered words. And right in the middle of those words, you'll see laws and rules. You hover your cursor over laws and rules, you'll see a drop-down menu. And you want the last option in that drop-down menu, wage transparency and construction compliance. That's going to take us to a list of bullet points. And about 2/3 of the way down that list, you'll see Prevailing Wage Act. I'm going to go ahead and click that. And that takes us, should have had a view at the top of the page. It's going to take us to the Prevailing Wage homepage. And I encourage you to star that page, save it to your favorite, bookmark it to your favorite. So if you scroll to the bottom of the Prevailing Wage Act page, that's the view we're looking at right now. And at the bottom of the Prevailing Wage Act page, you see the words Certified Transcript Payroll Portal. And it's a requirement, became a requirement of the Prevailing Wage Act as of 2020. Anybody, any contractor who participates in a prevailing wage project, input their information into that certified transcript of payroll portal. They have to input their payroll information into the portal. So I'm going to be talking to you a little bit as we go along about what kinds of things the portal is going to be asking you for. And certainly, Ms. Garcia has some more information available when we're done about navigating the portal. But we're going to touch on that a little more. Just know, I just want to touch on the top, just skim the surface of the certified transcript of payroll portal now and say the contractors have to enter their payroll information on a weekly basis. And it's due by the 15th of every month. But we're going to come back to what goes in there. So let's continue our tour, though, for the moment of the Prevailing Wage Act page and learn about some more really important things on that page. So just above the word Certified Transcript of Payroll Portal, we have a Forms and Links section. You can expand it with the little drop-down arrow that says the right of the word Forms and Links. Now, if you take nothing else away from today, hone in on this part here. In the Forms and Links section, the second to the last bullet point, we have a bullet that says public body samples. But this is important for contractors too. Let me explain why. Once you click public body samples, you get 3 bullet points. Inside there, there's model language for call for bids if you are required to do one. It's not required by the Illinois Prevailing Wage Act. But you may have a local ordinance or contract that requires you to do a call for bids. There's your language for it right there. That's not the most important thing, though, to us. The most important thing you can take away today.
Yeah, that works.
is the model contract language, the third bullet point there. You would
Okay.
click that. Get the Word document, paragraph there. Now, you can copy and paste this right into your own contract. If you're a public body, your number one duty when it comes to the prevailing wage is to notify your contractor of their duty to pay the prevailing wage. And this is all the language you need to do it. If you're a general contractor, your duty to notify any subcontractors of their duty to pay the prevailing wage. So it's not just enough to hand it out, unfortunately. We love that. We love to hand it out like candy, but also need to have it signed. We need to have a signature. That contractor acknowledged they received the notice of the prevailing wage requirements for this project. So you could make it into a contract. If you didn't have one, you had to create a contract on the fly because it's midnight and you have a leak in your building. I hope you keep these in your glove box. Give that to the plumber and say, hey man, heads up. You have a duty to pay the prevailing wage requirements here, the Prevailing Wage Act. All the language you need to give them is right there. Have them sign and date, and you keep a copy of that for 5 years. 5 years is statute of limitations on a prevailing wage act case. So if your contractor completely failed to pay the prevailing wage and they land themselves in an investigation, the Department of Labor, the first thing they would do, come to the public body and ask, did you give them notice? You're gonna say, yes, I did. I have it right here. I've been keeping it for 5 years. It's signed and dated. So that's your prevailing wage act notice. One of the most important things you can do. So let's go back. Let's continue our tour. I would close out of this if I were on the website, hit the back button probably a couple times. So I'd be back on the Prevailing Wage Act page. And this is a view at the top of the page. Prevailing Wage Act. And you see next to that red arrow there, we have what are the prevailing wage rates? And that blue medallion there says view current rates. Let's jump into that. Let's talk about some rates and what to do with them. So then it brings us to a list of dates. Right at the top, we have the current rates. It's a requirement in the state of Illinois that anybody who participates in a prevailing wage project pay the most current rate, even if that rate changes in the middle of your project. So I encourage contractors to view these rates at every single pay period. Make sure that they haven't gone up, make sure you aren't missing anything there. So we're going to click that top bullet point, current rates as of March 2nd, 2026. Next, it brings us to a list of counties. You're going to choose the county where your project is located. So I've chosen Cook County for today's example, and that'll bring you a rate sheet. Now, for today's example, it's kind of small there, but I've selected brick mason. I just chose it for an example to go by, but the rules we're going to go through today are going to be the same regardless of what class you're in. So back up for a second, just pause for just a moment. Prevailing wage is essentially the union wage. The union, the wage for the local union, the union in that county, or the unions in that county. And it has to be paid whenever state funds are used to fund a fixed work construction project. So also have to do very detailed timekeeping. And when you go to choose a class, it's going to be very literal. So if you're holding a paintbrush, you're a painter. And you might be next picking up some debris, you're a laborer. You have to keep those kinds of detailed records in your time cards for prevailing wage. So very literal from one act to the next. What are you working on today? We have brick mason selected, and I apologize, it's not a bigger view, but after brick mason, we see the word all. You know, in some counties, in some classes, it would be a region there, like northeast, south, or west. You would have to learn, where is my project? Is it in the side of Cook County, what constitutes the north side of Cook County, it's from the bottom of that rate sheet. Find a legend there that explains what is the north side, the south side, if we had to choose. Sometimes there's Brick Mason North, Brick Mason South, things like that. Here we just have the one, Brick Mason All. The next little abbreviation in our legend there is building DLD. For a lot of different classes, you have to choose between building and highway. And the rule is building is anything inside or attached to a building. And highway is everything else. So I once had a contractor call me and say, I'm going to build a bus stop bench, but it's not on a highway. Is it inside or attached to a building? No, we're gonna use highway. If it's not inside or attached to a building, highway's everything else. Here we only have one brick mason. So we're building a brick wall, we only have this one to choose from. So next, we're gonna look at our rates that follow that building designation, and they are base or foreman rates. How do you choose between a base or a foreman? A foreman is anyone in a teaching position. The Department of Labor likes to see one foreman on every job, and a minimum of one foreman for every 8 workers. So we're going to stay in the order of our rate sheet here, and I'm going to say that several times. It's very, very important. You'll see why as we go. You're going to choose between your base or your foreman rates, and next up we have prevailing wage overtime. If you've never heard about prevailing wage overtime, it's different than overtime as you know it. You have to throw out everything you ever knew about overtime, because it is not based on a 40-hour a week work week. It's calculated on a daily basis. So here's how we do that. Anytime over 8 hours, Monday through Friday, it's paid at time and a half. Really care how you got to that 8 hours. Could have spent them in a shop. So let's say at 8 hours and 1 minute of that day, you stepped onto that prevailing wage job, you have stepped into prevailing wage overtime. Could have already worked 8 hours that day, even if you didn't work them on an 8 hour on a prevailing wage project. Next up, we have Saturday. There's just an S for Saturday, I think, and it says time and a half. Any time at all on a Saturday, it's time and a half. So let's say it rained all week and your workers couldn't go out until Saturday. They work for 1 hour, starts raining again, and they have to go home. So they worked 1 hour this week, but it was on Saturday. And we know anytime at all on Saturday is time. 1 minute, 12 hours, time and a half. Sunday. Sunday for this class in this county is double time. Sunday, always double time. Again, we get 1 minute, 12 hours, double time for this rate, for this classification in this county. Now, we have to check our class in our county, because those overtime rates could change depending on what class you're in, depending on what county you're in. We always have to check our rate sheet. And holidays for this classification are double time. What constitutes a holiday? You're going to scroll down to the very bottom of this rate sheet, and in that legend below, you'll see a description of the holiday. And now we know we want to calculate some overtime. We're going to take our base or foreman rate, one or the other. We're going to stay in the order of this rate sheet. We're going to calculate, let's say we have time on a Saturday, we're going to take that base and foreman rate times time and a half for Saturday, and then we're going to add our benefit. If we were calculating double time, we'd stay in the order of this rate sheet. We'd take our base or foreman rate times 2 for double time, and then we'd add our benefit. Let's talk about benefit. Ricky, you guys are really sharp. I can see you nodding your head. You already know this stuff. For benefit, we at the Department of Labor call these fringe benefits, the collection of all these benefits. The first one up there says HW for health and welfare. What is health and welfare? It could be health insurance, medical, dental, vision, life. It's all going to health insurance. Now, if you're a union contractor, that number there is the amount you are already paying into your local county, local health and welfare fund. So pension, 401k or pension, that number there, if you're a union contractor, you're already paying that number into the local union pension. We're going to talk about what if you're not a union contractor. do in just a moment. Vacation, I believe it says $0. So union or non-union can have credit there. So we would imagine for a moment we were in a certified transcription payroll portal, we'd be seeing boxes, much like we see on this rate sheet where you're gonna enter your base or your foreman rate. And it would ask you health and welfare for your union. You're putting that number in your union box because you're already paying that into a fund. And what the inside the portal wants to know is what are you paying into a fund on behalf of its worker? For union, we 1271, we put 1271 in that health and welfare box. Talk about if you're a non-union shop. What if you don't offer benefit? You put $0 in your health and welfare box inside that portal. But it's asking you, how much are you paying into a fund? How much are you paying into a health and welfare fund on behalf of this employee? We have no benefit with this non-union shop. We're at $0 in our health and welfare box, but it doesn't mean we don't have to pay that benefit. We have to add it on the base, pay the cash value of it. Not paying in cash. I recently had some confusion on it. We don't want to pay it out in cash. We want to add it to that base pay. After, of course, you calculated any overtime, because we always stay in the order of this rate sheet. Base or foreman, times any overtime plus benefits. So if you're union, you're paying those benefits directly into your union fund. If you're non-union, you're adding them onto the base. So you're gonna show a heightened base inside that portal, and we here at the Illinois Department of Labor are gonna know exactly what that means. It means you're paying the cash value of those benefits. You're gonna have them all, if you offer no benefits, you're gonna have $0 in all your benefit boxes. You're gonna have all of those benefits added to your base. After, of course, you've calculated any overtime, because you remember that you always stay in the order of your rate sheet, and that you always take that overtime times that original base number, and then you add your benefit. So what about training? And I've been at this for 20 years. I don't need any training. But we have to pay what the union pays. We have to match their pay, even if we're a non-union contractor. So we would have $0 in our union training program. If we have no training program, we would still add that training amount to the base. Now, if you're a local contractor, you can have credit for any benefits you may offer. And I'm gonna give you my cell phone number. You call me, I'll teach you how to do that. I'm not gonna take everybody down that rabbit hole today, we've done that already, right? So that's how you calculate benefit. It's how you handle your union benefit with no benefits. You have $0 in your benefit box, adding those to the base. Two more rules to tell you about here, and we'll be done talking about these numbers for today. Let's talk about drive time. Drive time has to be paid on a prevailing wage project. Here's the rule. For the driver alone, a commercial vehicle, I don't care if I'm on an Accord, if it's a company car, commercial vehicle, and you are hauling material, equipment, tools, or supply necessary for that project, drive time has to be paid. So what we do is we probably scroll down to the bottom, we scroll down to the truck driver classes. You can see several. They're numbered like 1 to 5. Different counties have different numbers of truck driver options. Of course, they're spelled out in the legend below. Truck driver 1 is going to be your smallest truck. So if you're driving a regular truck or a compact car, probably going to choose truck driver 1. You're going to treat those numbers the same way you did your birth Mason numbers. You're going to always treat these numbers the same way. You're always going to stay in the order of your rate sheet. But keep in mind that drive time has to be paid for that driver alone. Passenger can receive their normal non-prevailing wage rate, so you might have a fight over who's gonna drive. But don't forget to pay that drive time. It's a red flag. A lot of union reps scour our certified transcriptive payroll, looking for somebody to make a mistake. Don't make that mistake of not having drive time. It's a red flag. Somebody could complain about you. Probably not going to use truck driver O and C. That's oil and chip for paving roads. So you're probably just going to use truck driver 1. But just keep that drive time in mind. And the last, actually, there's just 2 rules left to touch base on. And the last one is owners have to be paid prevailing wage, business owners, contract owners. So a lot of times people think, I'm the owner, I don't have to pay myself the prevailing wage. That's incorrect. You have to be paid the prevailing wage. You have to have one of these classes. You have to go in the certified transcript of payroll portal. And finally, you have to fill a check going from your company to yourself or direct deposit or however you want to do that. So you have to be able to show the funds going from your company to yourself. It's a huge mistake a lot of contractors make and get themselves in trouble there, and then they have to write themselves a check. Boy, I hate doing that to people. But those are all the rules you need for the certified, for the classifications of calculating those numbers. So once you hit submit on certified transcript of payroll portal, you've entered all that information, you're gonna get a verification. Looks like this, emailed directly to you right after you hit submit. So if there's a public body asking you to turn in your certified payroll, that's what they mean. You can get this in a PDF and an email, you can forward it to them. So a lot of times we get like paper, federal forms. Don't make it up, don't Google it. Go directly to the portal, enter it in, the real deal, that verification sent to your email. And yeah, my name is Jennifer Ryan. There's my cell phone number. It's 217-725-5455. You can call me and we can go over this as many times as you like. I do it all day long. Ms. Garcia can be reached at dol.certifiedpayroll. I'm sorry, there's a typo there. dol.certifiedpayroll@illinois.gov. dol.certifiedpayroll@illinois.gov. I apologize for that. You can call me, I'll get you in touch with Ms. Garcia. She has a whole other presentation on getting started in the portal. She's just a real expert at that. That's all I have for you. Do you have any questions?
The driver. Now, can you repeat that? I was taking notes, but you said something that they have to be paid. So you pay them for the time that they leave their home or the actual job site to go get something?
So that's a good question, and the answer is it depends. So if they have to go to a shop to get tools or a shop to get the car, I'd probably start paying from the shop to the job site, wherever they're going to pick up that commercial vehicle, material, equipment, tools, or supply. So now if they get to leave that job site and go home with that car, I'm not paying them to go to Applebee's with their family. Like they're not hauling material at that point. But if it, at any time, it's kind of your judgment call. If they're hauling material, equipment, tools, or supplies, you're gonna pay that drive time. Sometimes people have a lot of confusion about that, but they don't have very much. And so I think, what if I grab a tool belt and need a minute? Do they have anything more than I do? The answer is yes. Probably ought to be paying that drive time. Anything more than a basic tool belt probably ought to be paying that drive. Yes.
Okay, I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just real quick, off of that point, is there an app perhaps that a contractor can use that they can have their truck drivers be like, okay, hit this so that way I can start tracking, so that way it's more formal?
I'm gonna take your name and wait for you to create one. That's pretty cool.
Dang, I should have kept quiet. Hey, this is Men in Black. Nobody remembers I said that.
Okay, you said the contractor has to be paid. So what classification would they be?
It's very literal. It depends on what they're doing in the moment. They're holding a paintbrush, they're a painter. Picking up debris off the ground, or moving a piece of furniture, labor. Sometimes there's different labor classes. Are they inside or attached to a building? Everything else is highway, but very literal. So, and that's another thing to know about making entries into the portal. The portal can't understand that John Doe can do several different things in a day. So if you're entering into the portal and you have John Doe who began his day as a truck driver, and then he got out and he was a brick mason, and then he gets back in the truck and he's a truck driver again for the way back to the shop, you'd have to have different entries in the portal. I can't understand John Doe can do these different things. You have John Doe truck driver, create an entry, John Doe brick mason. Is that right, Ms. Garcia? Okay, so yeah, you have to create different entries, but keep in mind that all those different classifications, no matter what John Doe is doing, his hours are stacking up. So you gotta watch out. If you do that 8 hours and 1 minute, you're stepping into prevailing wage overtime. And I would look at what is he doing in that moment. If he's driving home, we're gonna pay truck driver.
One more question.
Sure.
Okay, so if we go through this certified transcript portal, we have to still do LCP track?
Ms.
So I
Garcia,
would-
do you have information on that, on LCP tracker?
I would
We got
comment
some
on that.
here.
Yeah, we can comment on that. So, subcontractors who work with Department of Housing projects, we do use LCP Tracker for certified payroll submission. And you can export your payrolls from LCP Tracker to IDOL's database. There's an export function for each payroll week.
I'm a little confused about that though. Do they have to pay for that special feature to connect it into?
No, the use of LCP Tracker for our subcontractors is completely free to them.
Okay, just bear in mind, LCP Tracker and our portal are two different things. The LCP Tracker is the software that you're using, but our portal is the actual requirement of the act.
So the recommendation would be that you fill out your certified payrolls on LCP Tracker first, so that way you can export it and you don't have to duplicate data entry.
Correct.
Either the question in the chat, bud. Your hand up.
Yeah, so two questions. So when we talk about this prevailing wage as in reference to like if we were to hire subs and we just have them sign the contracts, at that point, are we supposed to stay alongside that sub to make sure that they're logging things in and they're doing, because there may be a separation between the developer may have a few people they're paying directly versus subs, contractors who are responsible for their team. And we give them that prevailing wage contract. At that point, as a developer, how close are we staying connected to that being done?
Here you go, I changed the PowerPoint screen, if you can see it, we moved back. If they have entered their information, the weekly payroll information into our portal and they hit submit, they will have the verification sheet. It's on your screen, it'll be automatically emailed to the email address they put inside our portal. And so it's not a requirement of the Prevailing Wage Act that you collect your subcontractor certified transcript of payroll. We don't require it, but we love it if you do it, because you know they've entered that information into the portal. We could actually, if you're in the portal, you could actually search for others and you could see what your subs put in, especially because every time you submit in the portal, every verification form that's emailed to you for each week has a case number at the top of it. So once you're in the portal, you can search for that case number. And so you can ask, if you wanted to go back and review all the entries they made, so you could ask your subcontractor for their case number for each week. You could ask them to forward you the verification they received in the email. But that's a nice way of sort of keeping tabs on what they're paying and whether they are at least complying with the portal. It's a good measure for that. We don't require it, but we'd love if you do it.
Here.
Okay, that makes sense. And the other question was, sorry, one more. On the prevailing wages, there was the health and welfare number that was like $12 and some change. What is that, a daily rate, or are we saying that is also an hourly rate? Really?
That's the hourly.
Okay.
Health and welfare benefits, a great question. Hourly health and welfare benefit, unions are paid. And because even non-union shops, which that's kind of what the prevailing wage is about. It's about union and non-union workers all have to receive the same amount. And that means that even if you don't offer any benefits, you can pay the cash value of each of those benefits by adding it to the base. After, of course, you've calculated any overtime, you're always gonna calculate that overtime first. You're gonna stay in the order of your rate sheet. Base or foreman times overtime plus benefit. You're gonna add in those benefits right to that base pay. You're gonna pay it out in cash. And again, like I said, if you offer benefits, you're a non-union contractor and you offer benefits, give me a call, I'll teach you how to take a credit for that. Kind of complex, we won't get into it today. But if you don't offer benefits, you're gonna have $0 in your certified transcript of payroll portal benefit boxes. You're gonna add each of those numbers to your base. You're gonna pay off the cash value, and that's gonna be an hourly number.
Yeah, question first, madam.
Yes, please.
So my question goes back to current prevailing wage rates. Suppose you bid a contract and it's a 3-year contract. When you bid that contract, you bid that contract based on the current prevailing wage rate, right?
Yes.
So you said that when we pay out, it changes. If the rate changes, then we have to pay the current rates.
I'm glad you
Who
asked.
absorbs that cost?
Here's what I recommend. The contractors who call me, especially the longer, you gotta keep this in mind, the longer your project goes on. But I encourage contractors to add $1 or even $2 to that base pay if you're making a bid, especially on a long-term project. Cover yourself a little bit. Is there guaranteed to be a rate increase in those classes?
Yeah.
In your county?
Yeah.
Usually. Classes, I see one every couple of years. Some classes see them very often. We don't know because those are literally the union rates from all around the state. So they go up when we get notification. Hey, we've raised our union rates in Cook County for the brickmakers. We get on there, okay, so we don't even know when they're coming. It's the unions are increasing their rates, but everybody's required to follow those. So I encourage public buy. If you're seeing labor rates over with $1 or $2 over an hour, somebody will at least have an idea that rate increases are coming and they might know what to do.
But just to be repetitive, when you consider your prevailing wage rate, consider it with the base rate and all the fringe benefits. That's all that little package that you just calculate into your estimate, because people look at just the prevailing wage rate and then they forget
Look
about
at that base pay and they think they're good.
Yeah.
But we now know all those benefits have to go in. I think there was a gentleman over here with a question first.
Yeah, a couple of questions. One, we talked about triggers for state funded projects in which now you have to, really preside by that prevailing wage act. What if it's not municipal dollars involved in a project? We happen to manage small grant programs where smaller contractors get involved in projects where the actual developers are just small businesses doing renovations. Does prevailing wage get triggered under those circumstances?
Any
Are
contract,
there city dollars involved in terms of those grant funds?
first understand any contract can require it. You and I can write a contract right now. We can say we're gonna include the prevailing wage.
Mhm.
So anybody can require you to do it.
Yep.
But whether it's required, so understand that you've got state funded, you've got city, you've got county.
Mhm.
Those are just trickle down on state funds. Those are all state taxpayer dollars. So, and I'm glad you asked that question too. So many brilliant questions today. So I once had a gentleman call me and he said, I don't understand why we had to pay the prevailing wage. He said, these are not state taxpayer dollars. He said, they came from our recycling fund. Well, who paid for your recycling fund? Your state taxpayer did. State taxpayer dollars. And another thing, let's say there was that flood in the middle of the night we talked about. And they said, well, insurance is gonna cover that. It was an emergency, so I didn't give prevailing wage notice. Wrong, you're in trouble, right and left. Give that notice to everybody for every project, for every fixed work project. And yes, who paid for your insurance? Those state taxpayers did, so that's covered too. So if you are a general contractor who frequently works on prevailing wage projects, I hope you'll print a lot of those public body sample notices that model contract that I give out, keep in your glove box. If you are the public body figure who has to go meet the plumber there at the building in the middle of the night when it floods, I hope you'll keep those in your glove box. Remember to have them sign a date, keep a copy of that for 5 years, get that notice.
Yeah, just a follow-up real quick. you touched on it a little bit. Where does the accountability reside? Is it that small business owner who is been awarded a grant to do some work and he hires a general contractor who hires a
Are you asking
subcontractor?
about liability?
Yes.
Who's liable?
Absolutely.
Okay. So it depends.
Mhm.
The first thing we do when we're investigating a case, like I mentioned, we looked at the public body and we asked, did you give notice? Did you give notice to your contract? The prevailing wage why? We know that you guys, everybody here have given notice and they're gonna have it signed and dated and keep that copy for 5 years. But next, we're gonna look to that general contractor. Did you give notice to your subs? Yes, you did. And so then we're gonna look to that subcontractor, you got a signed and dated copy. So now I know the subcontractor had noticed. That's the first step. They had noted. So then we're gonna look at the back wages of it. The immediate employer who didn't pay the correct wages, they're liable for back wages. Now there's a penalty involved. It's required, it's written into the act that there is a 20% penalty, can go up to 50%. There's a 20% penalty due. And it goes when there's failure to give, either if the public body failed to give notice, the public body's gonna have a penalty. If that contractor had noticed, you had noticed and failed to pay the prevailing wage, then that contractor had to pay that 20%, could be up to 50%. That's how liability falls.
Thank you.
That's 20% on top of what's,
That's 20% of the back wages. I believe this lady here is the excuse her had a question.
Yeah, so the rates get updated on not a scheduled basis, correct? About 8 times a
No.
year?
They're not scheduled. It's whenever the union notifies us that they had a rate increase. It could be on their fringe benefit amount, it could be on their base. So they tell us and then we update our website.
Okay, I've had some companies ask me to notify them when it gets updated. However, since it's not on a scheduled basis, I unfortunately can't do that.
Right.
But is there like a function of your website that when something new gets posted, it like sends out a
I
notification?
wish there was. We've been asked that many times over the years. Unfortunately, that's not, and that's why I took you to the slow tour today. You guys are also welcome. When you give out that notice, you can give out my name and my cell phone. And I'm happy to teach all your subcontractors and anybody who doesn't understand prevailing wage. But what I do is I walk them through there and help them to understand where to find the most current rate. And I tell contractors, you've got to check the website for current rates. Don't Google them. Oh, who knows what you'll find. You've got to check the website for the most current rates at every single pay period, because you don't know when we're gonna get noticed that those rates.
There was a question, check. I think Lisa, you had your hand up?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I had it up a while ago. It was in relation to the question from the person about the developer, and kind of who's on the hook for it. If you are doing work with Department of Housing and even Department of Planning, whatever agreement you have, the developer is on the hook for the construction compliance obligations, which includes Illinois prevailing wage. So it would behoove a developer who's getting the grant or the money or the incentive from DOH to make sure that their subcontractors are actually submitting payrolls through LCP Tracker. So just want to stress that.
Thank you, gentlemen. Here's that.
Here's
Been up for a while.
I just want to echo someone from the chat, Chase Wheeler wants to know, does anyone have the data on prevailing wage increases year over year for the past 10 years?
It's available in our website. You can see, remember where I showed you the current rate? If you can find your way to the Prevailing Wage Act page, it's at the very top. It says what are the prevailing wage rates, and there's that blue medallion for view current rates. If you click view current rates, and of course the current rates will appear at the top, and then all the historical rates appear under it.
Thank you.
he can
Yeah,
run
when
that
you mentioned
into
the
current
greatness of
highlight.
I've been dealing with this for 15, 20 years now. I actually got a project out in King County. I got some bad actors on a project and I've spoken to the workers and I know they're not getting the prevailing wage, but I can't get them to come forward. Will there ever be any language, responsible bidder ordinance in prevailing wage for these bad actors? Because I mean, they can cook the books and fill out all the check boxes all they want, but they're not making what they're supposed to. That's fine, you're non-union, it's not illegal, but you're not making my wages. And I get this directly from the exploited workers, but in fear of retaliation, of losing their employment, they'll never turn on the boss, so.
They don't have to, you can make a complaint with us. A complaint form is in the forms and links section, if you go to the prevailing wage act page. And then on the bottom, you can see the certified transcript of payroll portal, and just above it, forms and links section with the arrow to expand it. Find the complaint form in there, and you can call me, you can take my name Jennifer, and you can take down my cell phone number. It is 217, you got that there? You can call me and I will walk you through a complaint form. They're not the most user-friendly forms, but I will walk you through that, and we will certainly get subpoena that employer, and we demand this record.
It's unfortunate because they're all labeled as independent contractors when we know they're not.
We know better. We understand that. We've seen that many times. So, we'll go out there about that.
Yeah, so this is just a point of clarification here as well. If there is a federally funded project that would ordinarily be under Davis-Bacon, and there's no Illinois funding, there's no Illinois state tax, local tax involved at all, that project is then under Davis-Bacon, correct?
One question I've been dreading today. That's new legislation, came down August 2025, House Bill 1189. And it mandates that federal funding is funneled through a state agency or a fixed work project. Then the higher of the two rates are to be used, the higher of the Illinois Prevailing Wage Act or Davis-Bacon Act rates be used. So, we haven't had a case like that yet. And my question to the legislators really, I guess, is jurisdictionally, how is that gonna work out? I don't necessarily have jurisdiction for a Davis-Bacon project. Lots of questions there, and I'm going to give you our attorney. Right to them. Ask them how that works out, because I don't have the answers yet, and I wish I did. But if you've got your pens handy, that email address is legal@illinois.gov. Illinois.gov, I believe.
I'll verify.
Thank you so much.
You said that was House Bill 1182,
1189.
1189.
That's when federal funds are funneled through a state agency. Davis-Bacon would normally apply. It's a new law that says the higher of the two rates between state and federal will apply. I don't know how I can enforce that. It's under Davis-Bacon. I just don't understand it very well yet. It's a big question. I don't wish anymore.
Previously you mentioned, the public body figure. The public body figure, I think, is that what you said? The public body person that works for the company.
Okay.
You mentioned that a plumber, you have an emergency at night, that person goes to open the door for the plumber. How is that person categorized? For prevailing wage purposes?
So they're not.
Okay,
So those prevailing wage classes are construction only, and they're very literal. So nobody at the office is gonna really be included, and can't include you for opening the door. I mean, now, if you open the door and you put on a hard hat, a tool belt, you pick up a hammer, you're a carpenter. Okay, you start hammering some nails, you are a carpenter. You start tightening some pipes, you're a plumber. So the moment you step into action on that construction project, you need a class, you need to be put in a certified transcript of payroll portal. But until then, we don't have a class for you, I'm sorry. Okay.
I have a question about apprentice. Where do you get their rate? And I know when you're in
LPC tracker, you can see that they have the categories there, but where do you get their actual rates from?
So those come from the United States Department of Labor, I believe, the US Department of
As
Labor.
long as they're a DLL certified
Yeah.
apprentice program.
Right.
Yeah, and we require that any apprentices, if you want to take like an apprentice rate, that discount on the base that's allowed through USDOL, if you want to take that discounted rate, your apprentices must be registered through the USDOL and must have that registration certificate in order for us to acknowledge them as an apprentice rather than the regular rate. But yeah, I believe the US Department of Labor supplies those percentages. I was checking with this union man. I was like, I bet you know better than I do. I believe the US Department of Labor provides the percentages that you can take on that base, and it kind of depends on the year the apprentice is in.
And then furthermore, you can't really be an apprentice if you're not in a union. And so as a result of that, it's always going to be whatever the union's rates are. So for us, when we're entering in apprentice data into LCP Tracker, we always require that you send us the union wage sheet so that way we can input that information in. Really? All right, yeah.
I believe there are some apprenticeship programs that are
Yeah,
not through a
there are
union,
some
but
yeah,
they're way more rare.
that's true. I think that's true.
But in order to be able to pay an apprentice rate, they have to be a DLL certified apprentice program.
Yeah, US Department.
Yeah.
And I recently heard that they called, we went round and round with them, we're like, we're looking for you as Department of Labor apprentice registration. They said, you mean a Davis-Bacon certificate?
Wow.
Certificate to me sounds like you're done with the program. But that's what the lady at the US Department of Labor recently, who we were in contact with, was calling it. So, apprentice registration, Davis-Bacon certificate. I don't know the exact verbiage there, it's a guess. Anybody else?
Anyone in the virtual to have a question?
One question. What are some examples of complaints that can be filed in that complaint form?
Anytime you believe that prevailing wage is not being paid on the project, we do like for you to have some proof. So the proof can vary. What is evidence? Maybe you found them in the certified transcript of payroll portal and you see that they're not paying any benefits. They've got $0 in the boxes and they don't have it added to their base. Hey, that's not prevailing wage. We are a tiny agency and we operate on complaint form. You're not, I mean, I can't say only. I guess we've contacted a few people and said, what is this? But we're complaint driven. So you send us a complaint form, and you tell us how you found that out. Maybe I talked to these workers, or, my buddy over there who doesn't want to be named says that they're not getting drive time. So even when that you believe the prevailing wage is not being with, you're welcome to report to us. Again, you're welcome to call me if you need help filling out that complaint form. It's not entirely intuitive, but just all the evidence you have, and the more the better. I saw 6 workers. That's helpful because you think about. I always tell people, you think about if you were making a complaint to the police, you wouldn't say, "I saw bank robbery," and hang up. Tell them more. Who did you see? Where did you see it? What did you see? How do you know they were robbing the bank? How do you know? So give me as much information as you can, because all I would have as an investigator, that tiny form. So if it just says, they don't comply by the prevailing wage, I'm like, I don't know what that means, tell me more. Did they not submit in the portal? Did the workers tell you? Are they putting 2 people in the portal when you saw 6? Tell me what you saw, and there's a box at the bottom of that complaint form to do that. Give me as much information as you can, and thank you.
sorry, is there opportunity for contractors, like after an investigation, and you find that they weren't complying with prevailing wage, is there opportunity to remedy that? Or is there fine?
They have to, they can remedy it with back reaches and a 20 to 50% penalty. There, you know, the law requires that penalty. So even though I've had contractors just, you know, really do everything in their power to comply with me and to make it right, I'm required by law to charge that penalty. I feel bad. But, you know, they can all have my cell phone number. I will teach them prevailing wage, forwards and backwards as many times as we like. So really, I want to help them get it right.
A little more of that legislation. The incredible.
No.
That's something,
That's a hot.
yeah, that's something that has been brought up.
Yeah.
Right, so is there any, let's say, make it just in case you start getting those calls and emails?
Yeah, here's, I'm gonna repeat the very little I know, it's House Bill 1189. And that states that anytime federal funds funnel through a state agency, and it could be city, county also, and those funds are used on a fixed works construction project in the state of Illinois, then the higher of the two rates, the federal, the Davis-Bacon, or the Illinois Prevailing Wage Act, the higher of the two rates should be used. We've yet to have a case, including House Bill 1189. I'm not sure how it's gonna play out. I'm not sure how our state investigators are gonna have jurisdiction to investigate a federally funded, a project that started out federally funded and has Davis-Bacon U.S. Department of Labor stamped on it. So I encourage you to send those questions to our legal team. They are legal@illinois.gov. And I'm sorry, I don't have more information about that.
This has been great.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, with a hand raised in the chat?
Yes, I just had a quick question. I hear people referring to a tracker that's used before you can, that will help you with submitting a certified payroll. Can anyone share more about the tracker?
It's not me, go ahead.
Yeah, so, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Yeah, so if you're doing a project with the Department of Housing, you're gonna be required to do so on LCP Tracker to report your certified payrolls. And, you know, we use LCP Tracker to make sure that everyone's getting prevailing wages and to track Chicago residency hours on the project. So when you're filling out your certified payroll in LCP Tracker, once you've completed that, you can export it to Illinois Department of Labor website.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Is the LCP tracker for Cook County only?
No, LSP tracker is used across the entire country.
Yeah.
A lot of state agencies, local municipalities use LSP tracker for collection of certified payrolls.
Some people use Elation as well, like HUD uses Elation. But yeah, if you're working with the city of Chicago, you're gonna be using LCP Tracker.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Prevailing wage restitutions. Okay.
If there's no more questions, concerns, I would like to thank you all for joining. We did start a little earlier, thank you for your flexibility. So if you haven't already, please sign it. There's a link that was dropped in the chat. Please sign it so we can keep you updated on future sessions as well. Today's session was recorded and we'll be sharing materials that and follow up on information in the future. So we definitely.
What's the website we can go to watch this?
Now I will send an email for the information and I can add the prevailing wage
Presentation.
All right. And I'll be adding the prevailing wage presentation email as well.
You're gonna send everyone's contact?
Yeah. Absolutely.
What's gonna opt out? Is it?
No, I don't opt out.
No, I'm not saying that.
So-
sure you update the website for that one too, because I think we left at illinois.gov off.
There is a mistake in that email on the last slide. I'm so glad you brought that up. That's dol.certifiedpayroll@illinois.gov.
Make sure we update that.
Thank you. Are you able to?
Yeah, so I will,
change that?
yeah, I will change it.
Thank you so much, @Illinois. You want me to write it down?
No.
Highlight that correction when you send this.
Definitely. So we definitely look forward to continue with the conversation. So everyone in the rooms, a lot of us here, just the time we, fellowship with each other. And answer any additional questions that you have. And everyone in chat, thank you for joining. Debbie will send more information for future events. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.